just real quick, Sheila will be emailing this out. So you guys will get it through Breeze, through your email. You can register that way, or you can get this from me. Thanks.
Children's Church, we release you. Good morning.
Good morning.
We had an awesome time in Oklahoma. Heard y'all had an awesome time here?
Yes, we did.
Just okay, or? Oh, it was awesome, okay. No, I did see it. Coming back through Dallas, me and Omar threw it up on the phone and watched it all the way from Dallas to Houston. So I told Sheila, I said, I've heard you preach a lot, but I think that was the best one I've ever heard you speak. But she can't get on to me for how long she went. Come on now. I'm like, girl, she just kept going. She had like 5 closings. She's learning. She never said she's going to close. She just say, I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Let me just reiterate the Great Awakening. Of course, we'll have Pastor Keithley here with us, and Jared and Nathan. Definitely them two. Yeah. We got different people coming. So, and then on that 20th, what we're going to do is we're going to celebrate with the whole church. I don't know if you remember last year when we had tables out everywhere and we did barbecue, and this time it'll be a little cooler. Okay. And but come and celebrate with us. Invite people to come and just hang out, and there's something that happens when you learn how to celebrate together. Amen. So that'll happen on the 20th. We were thinking about doing it on Friday night, and I thought, man, let's do it on Sunday where everybody can just invite people and just have a hoedown, right? Yeah. The other thing I want to mention to you, and it's a little ways off, but when me and Sheila went to Australia and doing the conference, we met a guy named David Balestray. That's the best way I can say it. Excuse me. He was Darlene Check's business manager. Still is, but now he's like a senior associate of their church. Now, one thing I want you to understand, if you don't know anything about Hillsong, they are not Hillsong, okay? Hillsong's awesome, but they are not Hillsong. They are different. Let me say it like that. So that's what we are, right? We're different. Yeah. But this guy is definitely a prophet, and the bad thing is, his schedule is so, he'd already had it set. And so I just said, look, do you have any time while you're here? At that point, it didn't look like we had any time. So he texted me the other day. He said, look, I got a Monday and a Tuesday. I said, done. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a Monday night here. Awesome. And just a full-fledged, whatever happens, turn him loose to prophesy, release. And now, the other thing is he carries an anointing for business, big time. And so we'll see what we're going to do from there, but we definitely want to have a joint meeting on that Monday night and just let him release and prophesy and give what God has for him, or has for us, right? Yeah. And I think that is September 30th. Yeah, September 30th and 1st of October. And we'll put some stuff out. I'm just, we're way in advance. I just want you to know that's coming, and so you can plan. And I'm just telling you, if I was you, I wouldn't miss it. I'm not going to miss it. And it was amazing when we spent some time with him. He had Googled us and found out who we were. I'm like, why didn't I Google and find out who he was? But we definitely have the same DNA, and He had given Josie a word. I didn't tell him anything, and man, the accuracy that he released over Josie was amazing of what she was doing and what she's going to do. And have you seen an ESPN commercial? Yeah. All right. Yeah. So anyway, that's coming out. So now you have to watch football just to see Josie, right? All right, open with me the book of Genesis. Yeah, the Monday night will be here. We're going to see what we're going to do on Tuesday. Really, I would like to do something different, not here at the church, but because he has such a call to business people and that type of thing, I'm just kind of seeing what I feel like God wants to do. You have to understand who I am. I'm not interested in just having someone just to have them minister. I want to build relationship. And so, sorry, sometimes I get a little selfish. But I know this is a relationship that God is doing and putting together. And so I don't want to just bring someone in and just have them minister the whole time and not get to hang out with them. Matter of fact, he's actually staying in our home, which really blessed me because I gave him an option. I'll put you in a motel. And he said, no, I want to stay in your home, get to know your family better. And so part of that this time is just to have him in, see what he's going to do with the church, and then just kind of develop a relationship. Because when we're in a conference, we didn't get to spend that much time because everybody else is pulling on you. You know what I mean? All right. So this morning we're going to go into something I've touched on before, but I really feel like this is what I'm supposed to go after this morning because I'm right in the middle of it, and I'm sure some of you are right in the middle of it. And look at your neighbor and say, the process of pain. How many knows pain is a good thing? Y'all don't want to say that, do you? It really is. Pain just shows you have a problem. Whether you want to call it pain or you want to call it suffering, Jesus learned obedience to the things that he... suffering is pain. Dora called me, or she texted me the other night, and she was, man, I'm in pain. And immediately when I started praying for her, she started telling me what was wrong, and I heard abscess tooth. And so I started praying for her, and anyway, she had to get some medication, and then she ended up getting her tooth pulled. And, then she Facebooked me later saying, oh, how great, because the pain is gone. Sometimes you don't know how great peace is till you don't have it. And so when you're in the midst of pain, it's hard to celebrate. It's easy to celebrate when you have the victory. It's hard to celebrate when you're in the midst of that pain. And so I find out a lot of times when you're going through pain, ultimately the first thing you want to do is you start, find out what I do wrong. Come on, help me, Jesus, help me somebody. You're dealing with all those, who did I judge? I forgive Mama, I forgive Daddy. I forgive President Trump. Come on, forgive me for what I said about him. Y'all act like y'all know what I'm talking about. Man, when I was going through that kidney stone, it was like, okay, what did I do, And, God spoke to me through some things, and a lot of times, we've been taught by the church that everything that we do, there's a repercussion, okay? And so a lot of times when you're dealing with symptoms of something, we've been told by the church it's because you got sin in your life. Come on, you're out there? But yet God calls you righteous.
There you go.
So we got a problem with that. And so I believe God wants to deal with some of those things. And because how many knows Jesus suffered pain, but he didn't have no sin in his life? Uh-oh. Everybody say, uh-oh. So how many knows suffering is not always attached to sin? Suffering is attached to obedience. Oh, it done got quiet right there. Come on, isn't that what he said? He learned obedience to the things that he suffered. Yet, he didn't have sin in his life. And so we're going to go through some things today where I want to try to help you with that process. Because how you process the pain is going to determine if it brings you into peace, which leads you fully into obedience, or does it bring you into offense that leads you into torment? Okay? So in Genesis chapter 11, verse 26, we pick up this story, and Terah is Abraham or Abram's father. Now Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And it goes on to talk about the genealogy here. In verse 28, it says, and Haran died before his father, Terah in his native land, the Ur of the Chaldeans. Now look at verse 31. And Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarah, his son Abram's wife, and they went out with them from the Ur of Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. Now, how many knows, usually we pick up the story with God speaking to Abraham or Abram to leave. So, but we don't go back far enough to go, Terah got the same word. So Abram's dad got the same word that Abram did. So let's find out why Terah didn't fulfill the word that he got, right? So the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Sheila, you get me some tissue, please. So here you have, thank you. Here you have, Terah has a son named Haran. He has a word to leave. He takes his kids with him. But then what happens is his son Haran dies. How many knows that's some pain? Now, what's going to determine him fulfilling what God's called him to do, how's he going to process that pain? And so he comes to a city called Haran, the very name of his son that died. And because he could not process his pain, he died in the same place. Now, I would go on to say, probably a pretty good chance that Terah was offended. God, I'm obeying you. I'm doing everything I know to do. I take my family. I'm on the way doing what you told me to do, and my kid dies. Hello, y'all, anybody out there? And you know, what I'm trying to tell you is, you know, all offense that you go through always comes back to God. You may blame somebody else, but ultimately it comes back to him. And so here he is in this place where his son dies, and you can imagine that pain to the point that what's the use? I'm trying to obey God, and look what happens. You know, God, you took my kid. How many knows God didn't take his kid? Hello. But that's the process. Right? And so then we see Abram, and now Abram picks up, and here God speaks to him and says, now, I want you to go. Now, Abram, number one, he disobeys because he wasn't even supposed to take a lot, right? And as he's going, you know, you'll see what happens here, but everybody's process of pain is going to be different. That's why you can't compare your pain to somebody else's. Because if you got pain and I got pain, mine's worse. Because it's my pain. I go into the doctor's office, which is really goofy, and they say, tell me the measure of your pain. You know, they got this, you know, number 1, and then, you know, finally gets up to 10 and like this. And I said, to the degree of my pain, does it get me in any quicker? They said, no. I said, what difference does it make? I mean, why do you need to know the degree of my pain? Because I'm going to tell you something, if I got pain, it's a 10. Come on, I mean, how do you grade pain? It's pretty ridiculous. So, Genesis chapter 12, we pick it up with Abram. And in verse 4, so Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he departed. Everybody say 75 years old. I mean, no, he old man. Right? And now he's went through this process, and now I want you to get this. Now, he hadn't lost a son, but he's lost what? A father and a brother. So how many knows he's having to process the pain, but how many knows Abram processes the pain different than Terah did? Because Terah stopped in his pain and it killed him. Come on, y'all better listen to me. If you stay in your pain, it'll end up killing you. Because the pain is being used to bring you into peace. But here's the problem. Nobody likes pain. I mean, that's why the drug world is so rich today. Because nobody likes pain. I mean, we don't want to feel nothing. And listen, I understand that, man. You got a toothache, give me some morphine, Dilaudid, whatever you want to do it. You know, I mean, give me something while I'm in the process that we can get to the root of the problem, right? So I'm not against understanding getting some relief. And I think I told this before. One time we was on a men's retreat, and I had an abscessed tooth. And we went up in the woods, way up in there. I mean, we were like 20 miles up in there. And all of a sudden, it started swelling. I mean, it looked like I had a chaw of tobacco, right? But it didn't hurt. And everybody's like, what's going on there? I said, oh, man, I got this tooth that's, it's bothering me. They said, why didn't you go to the dentist? I said, I had a bad experience. They're like, what? I said, I had a bad experience. So because of my bad experience and the memory of that pain, now I'm dealing with something that I shouldn't be dealing with.
That's right.
So it was fine, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, that big old chaw of tobacco decided that it wanted to come out. And I mean, it started throbbing. And I mean, now I'm a grown man, but I'm like, y'all got to get me out of here now. I mean, knock me out, do something, man. And they literally had to drive me out of there in the middle of the night. And they took me to the doctor's office, the dentist's office. They got him up. And he went in there. And the first thing, when he came in, I looked at him. I said, I'm going to tell you something right now. I had a bad experience. And he's kind of looking at me. I said, you better numb that thing while I don't feel nothing. And I was bigger then than I am now. Now, I think he saw the look on my face. He shot it up twice. And he lanced that thing and drained it. And so the next day, man, I'm feeling good, right? Because the pain's gone. But I still got the problem. And you know what I did, stubborn me? I waited another 3 months, and that sucker did it again. Now, he told me the first time, he said, you had enough poison in that to kill you. And that thing went out there again. I had to go back to him. I said, you did good last time. And it was kind of like he looked at me like, I ain't going to do this again. We're going to lance that thing, then you're going to come back, and I'm going to get rid of that thing. But how many knows because of my bad experience, come on, I didn't want to deal with the root of the problem. See, you can't let a bad experience cause you not to go to the root, because if you do, you'll continually just deal with the symptoms. So I want you to get this. So Abraham has to deal with this pain. And so he leaves. He's lost a brother and a father. He's 75 years old. God speaks to him and says, hey, I'm going to give you a son. I'm going to make a covenant with you. This is what I'm going to do with you. So he gets this promise. Everybody say 75. 25 years later. 25 years later. And had to go through trying to make it happen without God and birth an Ishmael. But 25 years later, he gets the promise. How many knows you might be ticked off at God if it took 25 years to get the word that God spoke to you? See, that's a process of pain. It's called patience. See, we don't like patience. We like microwave. Nobody likes McDonald's food. Why do you go through there? Because it's fast. Come on, let's just get honest. I mean, the French fries are good, but other than that, See, but we don't like to wait for anything. We want everything right now because we don't want the pain. We don't want to wait. Can you imagine 25 years? Can you imagine the doubt that he went through? Can you imagine going, I don't want another word, God. I mean, matter of fact, God tells him and confirms this a couple times, and Abraham goes, how do I know you're going to do this? Maybe because I told you and I'm God. But you can understand Abram's part going, look, we started out on this journey. I lost my dad and my brother. Then you give me a word. It's not happening. I'm old. My wife's old. Yeah. Hello. So she comes to me with a good idea of trying to fulfill it with the handmaiden because I'm like, well, it's my seed. May not be her seed, but at least it's my seed. Maybe this is the way we'll do it. Why? Because he don't want the process of pain, which is called patience. We don't want to wait on it. So we're going to go through the Bible and just show you a few of these, and then we're going to see how Jesus did it. Because he didn't do it for you, he did it as you. How about Joseph? You get this brother that all of his brothers are out in the field working, he gets to stay home. How many knows that's a process of pain? Now, you would think, what pain's he going through? Now his brothers don't like him because daddy likes him more than he does. So he keeps him at home, and he's training him while the other boys are out there working in the dirt, in the heat. How many knows that causes your brothers to be mad? And then not only that, but he would be what we call a tattletale. Y'all ever heard of one of those? Yeah, that was me. I was as young as 13. I'm going to tell on you. You know, my brothers used to threaten me. I'm going to tell Mom. You better not. You can't catch me. Because see, you know, if you've been around a parent very long, they usually don't raise the last child the way they did the first one. And if the children are around, the children get upset that this one's getting away with something they didn't get away with. And so all of a sudden, they become dad. Or they become mom. I'm going to give you a whooping myself. Because this is what she should have done, and I'm going to give it to you because that's what I went through. Come on. So Joseph has got to deal with this, and now think about this. Here you have to process the pain of rejection. None of y'all dealt with that. That's one of the biggest pains that you'll ever go through in your life. I mean, I'd say it like this. Sometimes I'd rather take a whooping than go through that kind of stuff. Because this is your family. These are people you were raised with. These are blood, right? And now they're rejecting you, and they sell you into slavery. I mean, that's bad right there. Now, you can imagine when they threw him in that pit, you know what he's thinking. They'll come back. They just playing. Come on, y'all never played like that? We used to put them in the refrigerator and shut the door. Oh, we really did. We'd be like, I hope they come back. Come on, we were poor. We didn't have nothing else to play with. We had to make up games. There was some excitement in it. And if you didn't know how to pray, if you're the one in there, you learn how to pray. I mean, listen, we did the refrigerator, we did the dryer, turned it on. I mean, you know, we didn't have Xbox. We'd come up with stuff. And so here in the middle of this, now I want you to, can you understand, when they sell him, you can imagine they're coming to pull him out, and he's like, oh yeah, they come back for me. Wrong. They just sold you. Can you imagine the rejection, that pain that he had to go through? And so to understand, well, this is God's fault. Or this is my dad's fault. Come on, now my dad made me a coat of many colors. He's the one that caused all them to hate me. See, the offense kind of goes and weaves because we don't want to take responsibility. And watch this. And this is hard, man. And I don't know how much I should give y'all this. But we just got through singing a song. And if you really come to the reality of what we just sang, it changes your whole world. I think we sing things at times and we really don't think about what we're singing. So if God is God and he has no equal, is there ever a problem? Now, I want you to think about that for a second, because it's easy for us to say that until we have a problem. But you just said the same spirit that's in him is in you. Resurrection power. And so he defeated everything, even death. Now that's in you. But what happens when you have a problem? You magnify the problem. Now wait a minute. Isn't God in you? So is there a problem? It's all in how you see it. Are you governed by the law of Adam, or are you governed by the law of God? Because God don't have an equal. God don't have an adversary. It's hard for our brain to think, oh, yes, he does. You know, they were a fight in heaven. No, there was not. Sorry to bust your bubble. All things were created by him and for him. Oh, come on now. See, we create evil to be a god. God don't do that. He has no equal. Oh, now, see, y'all want to pucker up at me now, but y'all was singing it a while ago. I saw some of you raising your hands going, yeah, no equal. Until the problem shows up. And the pain shows up. Then all of a sudden, you forgot what you were singing. Are y'all out there? Now, listen, I'm not speaking to you today in context. You know, I'm going through some things right now that it does not matter what anybody else says. It matters what I believe. You know, we read Bible stories, and really that's what they become. They become Bible stories. And I was up early this morning, and I heard something. And I heard, if I die, I die. Excuse me? If I die, I die. I'm like, what are you saying? And all of a sudden, for such a time as this. See, it's a Bible story to you. But Mordecai went into Esther, and he said, let me tell you who you are. And you are the one God's going to use for such a time as this to go into the king. And if you choose not to do it, he will raise somebody else up. But it will not be well for you. Now, we hear that, we go, oh, yeah, you know, I'm going to do it. But you don't understand. It was a law that if you came into the king without being summoned, it was automatic death. Wasn't even an option. Oh, yeah. And Mordecai made a demand on the reason she was born. And it touched something on the inside of her. Do you think she had some fear? Absolutely, she had fear. But there was something in her greater than that fear. And this is what she said. If I die, I die. But I'm going to die going after and fulfilling what God put me on the planet to do. Now watch this. And when she went in, what happened? The love that the king had for her caused him to yield the scepter. And says, up to half my kingdom, it's yours. What am I trying to tell you? The very fear that is challenging you and mocking you is keeping you from your greatest victory. Some of y'all need to hear that again. That fear that is mocking you and challenging you, that causes you to go, oh man, well, you know, what if I die? Well, if I die, I die. See, that none of y'all like that. See, if you go back to the disciples, did you know they signed up to die? You know, we actually make fun of Peter. But let me ask you something. Did Peter get what he wanted? He absolutely did. And what was Peter constantly saying? I'll die for you. They might leave you, but I'll die for you. I'll die for you. Guess what Peter got to do? And not only that, God said, this is how you're going to bring glory to me. How you die for me. See, that wasn't an accident, what Peter was saying. He was just saying it out of flesh, thinking, okay, I'm going to prove this to you. It's actually something God put in him for him, because he actually meant it. Oh, yeah. And when it came to the point, he said, I'm not going to let you crucify me like you crucified him. Crucify me upside down. That blows my mind. He's sitting here going, now I know you're about to kill me, and you're going to crucify me. So let's just make the pain worse. Oh, y'all don't. See, we're doing everything to get rid of pain, and Peter goes, hey, I got an idea. I mean, the guys are going, you want us to do what? I can see the guys going, man, it's bad enough to crucify him, and we're going to crucify him upside down. Man, this is rough. Why? Because everybody has that moral conscience. And you can imagine them guys going, man, we never been around nobody like this. This guy's weird. He wants to add pain to the process. But you see, there was something in Peter that was already there from the beginning that was like, I'm going to give my life for you. This is going to happen. And Jesus gets in on it going, okay, you are, and this is how you're going to bring glory to me in that death. And Peter's like, well, if I'm going to bring glory in it, let's just make it the worst kind of death we can make. Flip me upside down. Let all the blood run to my head while you're crucifying me. That's a good idea. Americans. All right. I got to get through this. How about accusation? Anybody ever dealt with that process? How many knows here's Joseph goes in to Potiphar's house, is over everything in the house, doing everything great. God is favoring him, man. It's awesome. I mean, great, good. And all of a sudden, the wife wants to sleep with him. Y'all know that didn't happen just once. You know, she was leaving little innuendos. And this point, it come to a point she's just like, I'm going to have him. And he goes, oh, heck no. And run off naked. And left the proof with her. And how many knows once you get accused and you're in the enemy's house, you have no vindication. Matter of fact, you left your clothes. Doesn't look good for you. What could he say? Nothing. What am I telling you? Quit trying to vindicate yourself. Quit trying to vindicate yourself. The accusation is going to come. And if you have to vindicate yourself, it's you trying to prove to you who you are. The reason Joseph didn't have to say anything is because he knew he didn't do it. And it did not matter what he said, God is approved with him. How about doing something for somebody and then them forgetting you when they told you, oh yeah, I remember you. When you're in a crisis. Come on, this is what happened when he had the baker and the wine carrier, and he gives them both a word. Thank God I'm not the baker. Come on, the wine carrier got a good word, so he's like, hey, how about me? Not good for you, buddy. You're going to lose your head. But the wine carrier, he's going to get restored to giving wine to the king. And what does Joseph say? Hey, remember me. Now get this. This is so mind-boggling to me. He says, remember me. How could you forget him? You were in jail. And he gives you a word. And because of that word, you get restored to your position. Coincidence, right? No. The spoken word. God watches over his word. And he gives him a word of restoration. And then when he gets back there, now you got to remember, he's back in this position, giving wine to the king. Come on, that's a good place. Prison's not a good place. But yet I forgot what got me out of prison. Do y'all think that was him, or you think it was God? Then why are you blaming what people are doing against you on the people? Why are you taking personally when people do you wrong? Because you don't have the revelation that Joseph did. Because he didn't get offended at God when he forgot him. If he would have got offended, he would have never remembered. Did you hear me? If he would have got offended, he would have never remembered. the offense would have stopped the promotion. But in the right time, in the right time, the king had a dream. And he says, hey, I remember when I was in jail, a guy. Come on. Go get him. How many knows it was the right season? If that hadn't happened and he remembered him when he got out, he might have got him out of prison, but he would have just been a prisoner set free. But at the right time, when God had set forth and he had prepared everything, because there was no offense, promotion was coming. And at that time, he was what? Taken to second in command. So he was willing to wait for it and didn't get mad because it looked like he was forgotten. Or God just passed over you. And, he gifted you with everything, but, you can't sing like that. God, why didn't you give me that kind of gift? Because what he gave you is just as important as what he gave her. It's just in a different way. All offense goes back to God. And that offense keeps you from promotion. Because everything that has happened is setting you up for something good. Okay. Let me say that. Everything in your life that happens is setting you up for something good. Why? Because God is only good. There is no evil in him. It's just not there, guys. There is no darkness in him. Hello. But see, it depends on how you see it, which determines if you can move into it. And because it don't happen in a moment, and the pain comes, who we mad at? Well, God, how come you didn't do this? And how come you wasn't there when I went through this? And why did you allow that to happen? None of y'all ever ask those questions? Think about Moses for a second. Moses is raised in the Pharaoh's house. Can you imagine? I mean, he's raised with wealth. I mean, luxury. Come on, you see those old movies, the harems feeding him grapes? Sorry. Oh, Charlton Heston was living it up. Some young people going, who Charlton Heston? He is the man. Okay. Anyway. So, can you imagine? Now, think about this. Moses has a call. He is a deliverer. This is what I'm trying to tell you. You cannot get away from what God sent you to the planet to do. You can't get away from it. The problem is we try to fulfill it in our own strength. So Moses is the deliverer. He comes up on an argument, and because he's the deliverer, and he doesn't know how to process the pain. Because the pain is he's watching his people be afflicted. And something in him's going, you're going to deliver them. Yes, I am. How about now? And he steps in and kills the Egyptian. And then what he does, outside of the timing of who he was in maturity, now he tries to cover it up. Come on, he hides him in the sand. But then he hears a conversation, and he was like, uh-oh, somebody saw me do it. And then Pharaoh sought to kill him. And so he fled. Now, where did he flee to? The desert. So, can you imagine what he left to what he went to? I mean, some people say, well, he forsook that to go to this. I promise you, he did not do it on purpose. I had an encounter the other night, and I was telling Omar about it going to Oklahoma. And in this encounter, I was talking to this person, and I heard somebody laughing behind me. And I thought, what the heck? And I turned around, and it was Jesus. And I turned around, I looked at him, I said, you set me up. He goes, yeah, pretty much. I mean, he's laughing at me. I think somewhere in the Bible it says God sits in the heavens and laughs. Why? Because he don't have no enemies. You're the one that's creating the enemies. And I had this conversation with him. I said, you set me up. And it was almost like I wanted to laugh, but I didn't like the pain. It was in Moses to be a deliverer. He just wasn't mature enough to handle it, so he did it out of the flesh. How about Samuel? I mean, can you imagine? Here's a prophet that none of his words fall and hit the ground. That's a bad man right there. Can you imagine how he was seen in Israel? When he spoke, he like E.F. Hutton. Everybody listen. Once again, the young generation going, who E.F. Hutton? Now, what was his process of pain? He's a terrible dad. Amazing prophet. But he was brought on the scene because there's a wicked priest, Eli, that didn't take care of his boys, Hophni and Phinehas. Yet Samuel reproduced from the fathering of what he was under. Awesome gift. Terrible father. And can you imagine the people going, hey, you're great, but we don't want your boys over us. They're not like you. Maybe he was too given to the ministry that he didn't have time for his family. Can you imagine the process of pain he's dealing with? Can you imagine how he felt about Saul going, okay, I've anointed this guy to be king. First king of Israel. I get to anointing. And then Saul goes into disobedience, right? And Samuel's ticked off at God. I wonder if that wasn't something related to his own boys, to his own insecurities. That here, hey, I anointed this king. Now you're going to take the kingdom from him. Everybody knows I'm the one that anointed him. And God said, hey, boy, how long are you going to mourn for Saul? Come on, some of y'all need to move on. You mourning from things that God's saying, hey, you got to let it go. People make choices. It's getting quiet in here. I mean, come on, Saul only messed up twice. I mean, if you look at David and Saul's life, you're going, hey, God, you got an issue here. I mean, David's a rascal. Saul messed up twice. He disobeyed you twice. God said, you don't see it the way I see it because you're looking at the outward. He said, I'm looking at the motivation of the heart. You might have saw him mess up twice. I saw that he was going to continue to do it, and he would not shift and change and repent. David was a rascal. Come on, took one of his mighty men's wife. So listen, if you can see Bathsheba from your housetop, it's because he lives close to you. And he was supposed to be out in battle. He's supposed to be fighting. I don't know if Bathsheba didn't have something to do with it. I mean, she knew the king was home. Come on now. We blame it all on David, but I think there's a little bit of mixture there. Sorry. But then what does he do? Then he brings him in, tries to cover it up, tries to get him drunk. And you see the loyalty of Uriah saying, I'm not going into my wife while my brothers are out there fighting and dying. I ain't doing it. So then he tries to get him drunk to do it. Then he can't do that. He's like, okay, now I got to kill him. Now, wait a minute. This is a man after God's own heart. There's hope for you. Am I saying those things was after God's own heart? No. Let me tell you what was after God's own heart. When he saw it. How many knows there was something happening? Because you have to understand, it was a different world in that day. Kings did what they wanted because they're king. They just took it. And God told them this is what kings are going to do. They're going to take you women. They're going to take you horses. They're going to take you. So there was some type of deception going on here. I mean, come on. David knew what he was doing. But there was some type of cloud or deception of, hey, I can do this and it'll be okay. I know none of y'all ever feel that way. Okay. Let me just break it down for you. You get into the grace message that God has dealt with your sin. And then you sin. And you get blessed, and you're like, well, I guess God don't care. It's okay. Come on, I mean, I had a friend of mine tell me about a guy, and I mean, a very famous guy, wrote lots of books, a very famous minister. He said, yeah, every time I sleep with a woman in a church, I get more anointed. He said, but I'm mature enough to handle it. It's a true story, guys. And see, if you don't watch it, you get over in And we distort what grace is. Grace don't cover sin. Grace gives you the power that you know you don't have to sin. That's what grace is. But if you were honest, every one of you has blew it, messed up, and the next day get your socks blessed off. And you're going, what's going on here? And that little voice goes, well, I guess that's no big deal if you do that. Oh, y'all don't want to be honest with me. Might have been gossip, whatever it was. And then we justify what we did. Well, then why does God bless you? Because He's good. It's the goodness of God that leads to repentance. Oh my God. It's the goodness of God. See, it shouldn't take you to go, oh, God don't care. It should take you into places, man, He's so good. Even when I mess up, He's blessing me. Man, I don't want to mess up. I got to get to Jesus. 2 more and I'll get to Jesus. How about Elijah and Elisha? How do you think Elijah felt when he ran from Jezebel? You think that was a process of pain? And watch this. And I know none of y'all do this because, y'all are all great. But, Elijah, he had issues. He thought he was the only one. He had a little ego problem. Ain't nobody out here doing what I'm doing. And you know what? There was a trace of truth to that. All the rest of the prophets were hiding. And Elijah was putting his life on the line. So there was an accurate statement in what he said. But it came from ego self. Are you out there? And, and he confronts this thing, has this incredible calls fire. Come on, man, if I can call fire down from heaven, I ain't running from no spirit. I mean, when she said, I'm going to do to you, I said, excuse me, I'm going to call fire down on you. Now, why couldn't he do that? Had he called fire down on men before? Absolutely. So what was the issue? The issue, there was something in Elijah that the only way God could show him what it was is to allow the process of pain. So I don't care what you're going through right now, God's trying to bless you in the midst of it. If you'll embrace that pain, if you'll embrace the process, if you'll embrace the suffering, it'll lead you to obedience. And once you come into obedience, no more reason to suffer. Did you get that? Once you come into full obedience, there's no more reason to suffer. Matter of fact, you can start to look at it like Paul when they were going to kill Paul, and he's like, I know. But I finished my race. I'm ready. How many knows he wasn't scared of the pain? Because he had matured in his obedience, and he said, I finished my race. I've done what I was on the planet to do. Bye. But the opposite is true. No matter what's telling you that it's your time, if you have not finished what God sent you here to do, not your time.
That's right.
Doesn't matter what anybody else says. Doesn't matter what symptoms say. Doesn't matter what it looks like. What do you believe in?
That's right.
Because watch this. What you believe is the only thing that matters. Let me say that again. What you believe is the only thing that matters. Because the kingdom's not out there. It's in here. So it doesn't matter what the process is that you're going through. You got to embrace that process and go, okay, what's God trying to do? I like what Graham Cook says. What can you be for me now that you couldn't be for me before? Instead of looking at it as a negative and magnifying the problem, you magnify the God to say, you're about to do something for me that you couldn't be that for me at any other time because I didn't need you to be that, but now I do. So guess what? It's called a law. It's the law of supply and demand. One cannot be without the other. Oh, this is free. This is really 3-day stuff. You can't have one without the other. It's a universal law. You can't change it. I don't care if you don't like it. Somebody's texting me saying, good word. So if there's a law of supply and demand, That means the supply was there before there was ever a demand. So if the supply is there, the only way the supply can come to you is for you to make a demand on the supply that was there before you needed it.
Wow.
You can't have one without the other. That's why he said, ask, and it shall be done for you. Why did he tell you to ask? What he's wanting you to understand is the supply has already been there. It already belongs to you. But if you don't understand that the supply is there and you get to make a demand on the supply, come on, if you got, let me make it simple for you. 1 plus 1 is 2. You can't get 2 if you have 1. If you're going to get 2, you got to have 2. So the law of supply and demand means they both have to exist. It is a law. But this is how good God is. He said, I'm going to put the supply in before you ever need it to demand it. And if you can come into the understanding of the supply is there, you'll see how good I am and come into agreement to ask. That's a demand on who I am, and I have to bring it to you. But see, we really don't ask, we beg. Like God don't want to heal you. Like God don't want to bless you. I'm going to stop right there.
That's good.
How about Elisha? Raised up as a son of Elijah. You know, I never thought about this much. You know, I'm not so sure, him calling out the she-bearers to kill those kids was the right thing. You ever think about that? I mean, I know they were mocking him. Go up, old bald head, go up. I know they're mocking him. But bears came out of the woods and ate the young generation. How many knows the young generation always going to mock you? It kind of shows a flaw in the character of Elisha, which actually manifests when it comes to his servant Gehazi. So remember when Naaman got healed and he wanted to bring him a gift, and God said, you can't take a gift. And Gehazi goes, well, bless God, he ought to pay for that. He got healed of leprosy. So he goes after him and tells Naaman, says, hey, give me this and give me that. And when Gehazi comes back, Elisha said, hey, where you been? Nowhere. He said, did not my spirit go with you? And he said, now the leprosy was on him. Watch this. Let it come upon you and your children. Elijah gets taken home in a chariot. Elisha dies of a sickness. Maybe because he judged himself and the sickness came on him. Just a thought. Not saying he wasn't a powerful man. Come on. But see, when you judge anybody, you're judging yourself, because we all come from the same breath. Whether you like that or not. I was dealing with a situation the other night. The person said, I just didn't ever believe I could do this. And you could tell condemnation was setting in. But flesh is flesh, and without God, flesh is capable of doing anything. We know that by looking at history and look at some of the things that flesh has done. But yet we judge them going, oh, I would never do that. You already did. Because mankind is mankind. And you can't separate yourself from mankind. Did you get that? That's why if you can see Jesus, he didn't do it for you, he did it as you. Love takes on a whole new meaning to you now. Because you could look at that and go, how in the world could anybody do? How about look at Jesus and go, how in the world could anybody do that? Because he didn't do that for me, he did that as me. So if he did that, that's what I'm capable of. Ooh. Oh. So I don't look at what I'm capable of over here. I focus on what I'm capable of over here. And no greater love that you lay down your life for your friends. What's he trying to say in that? He didn't come to be served. He come to serve. Most people can never get to that because it's the secret ingredients of all things. And they can't get there because they're living life for themselves. Let me say that again. When you live life for yourself, you're cutting off the greatest power in the universe. The greatest power in the universe is love. And if that is the greatest power, the only way that power can be demonstrated is to be released. And it has to do something for someone else greater than it did for itself. Did y'all understand that? That's what Jesus did. But if Jesus did it, you did it. And if he did it, then what are you capable of? You're capable of operating in that same power. And it is that power that's going to change the universe. God's just waiting on a generation that'll come into the understanding and revelation of that power. He told me some secrets the other night. You know, I love it when God says, I'm going to tell you a secret. I mean, I don't know about you, but this is the way I took it. Well, he never told anybody else. I mean, that's just how I see it, or he wouldn't say, I'm going to tell you a secret. Sorry. The trouble is when I get something like that, now I got to try to find verbiage to explain it. Because I can understand it in my spirit, but it don't do me any good to try to explain it if I don't have the right words to tell you what I'm... Because he don't use words to tell you. He communicates spirit to spirit. And you know just because you know. God don't speak English. Come on. All right, let's go to Jesus and we'll finish. John 11. I'm going to go to 3 instances which I believe are the 3 greatest pains in Jesus' life. You can disagree, that's all right. God will forgive you. John chapter 11, verse 1. Now I'm going to tell you the story. This is where a certain man was sick named Lazarus. Now, how many know this was his friend? This wasn't just his friend. This is where he hung out. This was probably one of his best friends that wasn't a disciple. Okay? And, you know, it's the brother of Mary and Martha. And so what happens here is the Jews have set up and they're waiting because when Lazarus dies, the Jews are set up to kill Jesus. I can do this in 15 minutes if faith will arise, okay? So they're waiting on him to kill him. So when he dies, they're like, okay, we got him because he's going to come. This is his friend. And so they wait 1 day. He don't show up. They wait 2 days. He don't show up. They wait 3 days. He don't show up. They go, he ain't coming. So they leave. Now you can imagine you go over here where Jesus is, and he gets word Lazarus has died or sick. Actually, sick. And the disciples are going, let's go. Because when Jesus shows up, what happens? Matter of fact, Jesus didn't even have to show up. He could have just sent the word and healed him. What am I trying to tell you? He will let you get offended to show you you don't know him. Because how many knows Martha and Mary thought they knew him? So when he heard it, how many knows he talked to Dad right then? Because he don't do anything without... So Dad said, hang out, boy. They're going to kill you if you go in there. Okay. They say, hey, we going? He goes, no. 1 day. 2 days. His disciples going, what the heck's going on here, man? I mean, it's Lazarus. And he's not going to go? Now he's dead. 3 days. And finally he goes, okay, boys, let's go. And they're going, why are we going now? I mean, it's too late now. I mean, what? All right, let's go. And then he shows up, and the 2 sisters have the same thing. If you would have been here, he wouldn't have died. And he's telling them if you'll believe, he can live right now. Oh, well, we know at the resurrection you're going to... No. I am the resurrection. Resurrection is not an event. Resurrection is a person. So look at this verse. Verse 33. Therefore, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her weeping, he groaned in his spirit and was troubled. And he said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Verse 35, and Jesus wept. So here's my question. Why is Jesus weeping? Well, you know, Lazarus is dead. No. Well, you know, Mary and Martha, they're crying. No. He's been with them this long, and they don't know who he is. You think I'm talking about Mary and Martha. But I'm talking about you. That ever in your mind you would ever think that he don't want to heal you, that he don't want to bless you, that he don't have something good for you. Can you imagine the process of his pain? The creator of the universe that's going to give his life for mankind, and mankind still challenging. You're not good. Because if you were good, you would have showed up. You would have been here. You would have healed me. You would have came through when I wanted you to come through. You're not who you say you are. No, none of y'all's ever done that. Because we don't want to embrace the process of pain. When you don't understand that offense that you're feeling is what's keeping you from the goodness of God. And he knows for you to come into maturity and come into full inheritance, he's got to allow that process in you so that you quit making a demand on him doing something for you. But you come into maturity that you understand it is finished. It's already done. He's not going to do anything else. He said, everything you're looking for is already right in here. All life is inside. Come on. Can God die? Where's God at? So can you die without God saying okay? Then what are you afraid of? See, what kills people is they come into agreement with what the old Adam says, what the five senses says, what the world says. But he said, be of good courage. I've overcome the world. I've overcome their system. I've overcome. That's what he meant when he said, deny yourself. You know what he meant when he said, deny yourself? Deny your five senses. Deny what your body's telling you. Come on. Deny what your doctor's telling you. Oh, see, this is where the rubber meets the road. I'm not preaching at you. I'm right in the middle of it right now. And I got to determine, what am I going to believe? What am I going to believe? If I die, I die. But I will accomplish what God sent me to the planet to do. Yeah. See, I don't think y'all hear what I'm saying. Esther wasn't saying she was going to die. Esther's saying, I'm willing to die. And because I'm willing to die, death has no power over me. That's what Esther was saying. See, that's what happened with the disciples. Because they were willing to die. Nobody took their life. They were like Jesus. They laid it down. Come on, they didn't kill Paul. Paul knew. Paul said, yeah, I'm going. I've finished the race. I'm done. I'm going to let you take me out. Come on, nobody killed Jesus. Aren't we supposed to be like him? So what keeps us from it? Fear. Fear is the driving force that tells you God don't love you. That's why the secret is love. And if you can ever understand the secret, within the secret is the power to cast out all fear. So if it's casting it out, where is it? It's in here. So if he's in here and he's love, where's fear at? But when you ever get to the point that you're willing to die, then what power does fear have? Fear's lost its power. That's why he said the enemy comes, but he has no place in me. What was Jesus saying? No fear in me. I'm going to give you these last two, and I'm going to have to condense them. These two just, they rock me from where I'm at right now and what's happening in my life. Because of everybody that goes through this process, Jesus is teaching us something. And he's teaching us how to be successful in the process. The next one's found in Luke chapter 22. We'll finish with these last two. Luke 22. Verse 39. Coming out, he went to Mount Olives. He was accustomed, and his disciples followed him. And when he came to the place, he said to them, "Pray that you may not enter into temptation." And he's withdrawn from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed. Now, we know this is him going to the Garden of Gethsemane. And so I'm just going to tell you the story. And so what he asked them to do, he said, pray that everybody say you. Don't enter into what? Temptation. So Jesus didn't need them to pray for him. See, we missed the context of this. Jesus wasn't upset when he come back and said, what the heck, man? Y'all sleeping? What's going on, you know? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. I mean, it almost sounds like a rebuke. What the heck's wrong with y'all? Because we focused on what Jesus is going through, that Jesus is saying, I need y'all to be praying for me because I got issues. I'm about to go through something, and I need you to pray for me. I promise you that's not what he was saying. Matter of fact, he already told them, when the time comes, y'all all leaving. What was he saying? I don't need you to fulfill why I'm here. But see, we've taken it that they needed to be praying for Jesus so they don't fall into temptation. So what was the temptation? Just a question. We'll come back. Is that all right? Yeah. 22. Remember when Peter cuts the dude's ear off? He said, if you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. And, and Peter's telling him, all the way through, I'll die for you and I'll do all this stuff, right? And he says, Peter, before the cock crows, you'll deny me 3 times. Right? Yeah. Verse 52. Then Jesus said to the chief priests and captains of the temple and the elders who had come to him, have you come out against a robber with swords and clubs? When I was with you daily in the temple, you did not try to seize me, but this is your hour and power of darkness. So what's he saying is, this was given to you by my Father for this to happen. In other words, y'all think it's bad, but it's actually part of Dad's plan. Are you with me? Having arrested him, they led him and brought him into the high priest's house. But Peter followed at a distance. Now when they had kindled a fire in the midst of the court, sat down together, Peter sat among them. And a certain girl, seeing, sat by a fire, looked intently at him, and said, is this also this man with him? But he denied him, saying, woman, I do not know him. I want you to get this. Woman, I do not know him. And after a little while, another saw him and said, you also are of them. And Peter said, man, I am not. Then about an hour had passed. Another confidently affirmed, saying, surely this is the fellow who was with him, for he's a Galilean. But Peter said, man, I do not know what you're saying. Immediately when he spoke it, the rooster crowed. Watch this. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. Whew. Can you imagine that pain? Even though Jesus knew he was going to do it, can you imagine that moment? Because even though you know things and that they're going to betray you, it doesn't take away the pain when it happens. And I believe this was one of the biggest processes of pain that Jesus dealt with. Come on, here's the guy that got the first revelation of who he was. Here's the guy going, I'll die for you. Here's the guy that walked on water when everybody else was scared and stayed in the boat. Come on, we're talking about Peter here. I mean, he had the 12, but he had the 3. And here he has to tell Peter, someone he loves, is this what you're going to do? And at that moment, watch this. He didn't allow him to do it and just do it. The third one, he was right there and looked right straight in his eyes. Right straight in his eyes. You would say, oh, what pain. And God's going, that pain is what's going to make you one of the greatest men that has ever walked on the planet. Because you'll remember that look for the rest of your life. And when you're restored, you will never see that look again. You know, I told you all this story real quick, situation me and my wife went through and some situations that happened. And I'm telling you, something happened in that situation. And I said, I will never let her feel what she felt. It did something in me. And I thought, I didn't even know that was there. But that process of pain let me feel something that I went, I don't ever want her to feel that again. Now, you understand what I'm saying? That look, that moment. It's not a condemning thing. It's, bless God, I'll never let that happen again. That's why he looked him right in the eye. He wasn't saying, I told you so. He's saying, I got something for you. The look that was coming to him wasn't a look of, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this. It's that look of, see, I knew you was going to do it, and I love you anyway. Last one. Boy, I got a mess up here. So if they wasn't praying for Jesus, why was he upset because they wasn't praying? Because he knew what they were about to face. I believe this is what he was dealing with in the garden. Now we know he came to a place, his sweat become blood. An angel came and ministered to him. And in that place, at that moment, we know what he was dealing with. He's dealing with the will of Adam. He's dealing with the 5 senses because he didn't do it for you. He did it as you. So he had to feel every emotion. He had to feel her. And I understand what he felt. But people going, oh man, he was in agony for himself. He was not. People say, oh, he knew he was going to have to go to that cross, and that's what it was. No. He knew all the sin of the world was going to put on him, and he was dreading that. No. How can you say that? Because it was the joy. The cross was the joy set before him. And you're telling me he knew they were all going to forsake him? He's telling you they're going to hit me, they're going to whip me, they're going to do all this stuff to me. And that joy, and at the pinnacle of that moment, he's feeling sorry for himself. And he's going, oh, if there's any other way, please let me do it. No. He did that for you. That wasn't on him. That's on you. He's feeling what you feel. And he had to let you know that he felt it. And that quick, he said, nevertheless, not what Adam wants, but what you want. That was the process of his pain. Had nothing to do with him. It had to do with you. Why? Because he knew when they killed him what his boys were going to go through. What were they going to go through? They're going to go back to doing what they were doing before they met him. Peter said, I'll go back fishing. Because they didn't think he was going to die. Would you? You seen him raise the dead? You seen him heal the sick? You seen him multiply fish? You going, oh, he ain't dying. They may put him up there, but he'll come down. No, he knew what his disciples, he spent 3.5 years with them. Now, you have to understand, we think 3.5 years, but he spent 3.5 years every single moment. That's like 10 years. Come on, think about it. And what he was carrying is he knew they would feel abandoned. They would feel rejected. They would feel, what do we do all this for? What do we leave our jobs for? What do we leave our families for? And this dude just going to die and leave us? He knew they would be offended at him. He knew every emotion that they would feel. He was saying, the reason I want you to pray is there's a temptation coming to you that you don't understand what you're about to deal with. It wasn't for him, it was for them. That blood wasn't for him, that blood was for you. It was the intercession that he knows that when the doctor tells you, you're going to die. Come on. And he's over here saying, if they know me, if they just knew what I did for them. Like Josie said, I did it 100%. He knows every temptation you're going to go through, every time you get offended at him, every time he doesn't do it the way you think he should do it. That's why he gave you a prayer language to pray for yourself, because you don't know how to pray. What you is to build yourself up on your most holy faith, keeping yourself in the secret. Oh, y'all didn't get that. Keeping yourself in the love of God. What's the love of God? It's what he did for you on the cross. It is the secret. It is illogical. Come on, don't y'all want to do something illogical? Field of Dreams. Let's do something illogical. Let's do something that makes no sense to the old Adam. I don't know. It's the process of pain. Stand up with me. I can tell you this. You don't know what you'll do till you're in that situation. In my encounter, I'll tell you this much part of it. I was talking with this person, and he told me, he said, every time that you come into an understanding of the purpose and plan that God has for you on the planet, he said, there's a test. The test is not about passing or failing. The test is about fulfilling why you came to the earth. In other words, you don't get it rejected because you didn't fulfill it. He doesn't reject you. Are you with me? It just has to do, are you willing to find out who you are? See, this is what Abraham did when he raised the knife back and God said, that's enough. Now I know. How many knows God already knew? But Abraham didn't. He didn't know till there was no sacrifice. Oh, he confessed it. Me and the boy will return. But the process is the hard part. Because you know in his brain, that knife's going back and he's going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, this is my son. And God says, help, that's enough. Now I know. Now I know that you put me first above everything else. It's not a test. The way you think a test is. Because you're the one that chose it in the first place. And the only way you can find out what's in you is the process of pain. And if Jesus had to go through it, and he had to learn it, the very thing that you're resisting is the very thing that's meant to bring you greatness. Come on, anybody in sports will tell you that. Anybody that lifts weights will tell you that. Without the resistance, you can never overcome. We're going to pray for a couple of you. Is your friend here? He didn't come? This guy in the white, yeah, is it white or blue? Can I pray for you real quick before we go?